Hello, it's the Sony Spider-Man-less cinematic universe, the SSCU. Is it over? Or...
My son, we are hunters, the greatest the world has ever known.
So Kraven's complex relationship with his ruthless father starts him down a path of vengeance with brutal consequences, motivating him to become not only the greatest hunter in the world, but also one of the most feared. And Kraven is rated R for strong, bloody violence and language. This is what I've personally been asking for from these Venom movies and other movies in this universe. Didn't care as much about Madam Web and Morbius, but Venom, I thought needed to be rated R, but I get it. You're going to sell tickets and make money and do all the things. But Kraven does that, and I want to start positive here. Let's start it out on a positive note, and then we will steadily decline as we progress throughout this review. There is something to how this movie handles its action and occasionally ruthless violence. Kraven's skill set, even though not explained very well, is on full display in portions of this movie. And there were times where I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. You got a bear trap, you're slapping it on someone's head, you're utilizing your skill set that we as comic book fans know very well, or if you've played the Spider-Man game, or if you've watched a Spider-Man cartoon, you kind of know who Kraven is, so you know what his powers are. So seeing them play out in this movie is really cool. And as a fan of Kraven as a character, I always thought there were so many possibilities here with what you could do with him, specifically with that relationship between he and Spidey. That's obviously not in this movie. There are spiders, though. So if you want Spider-Man, you'll get spiders. Austin, it sounds like they're shoehorning spiders in here like what they did with Madam Web. Yes, of course they are, because they have to, because it's a Spider-Man character. But there were cool moments to Kraven, and honestly, Aaron Taylor-Johnson kind of commits to this role. There are times where it's ridiculous and over the top, but you sort of need that in a superhero or anti-villain. Not a full-on villain, anti-villain, maybe inevitably a full-on villain type of thing. But he commits, and I could tell he was kind of passionate about this character. I could tell he was excited for this movie and for this character to play out on screen and eventually connect to Spider-Man. Maybe, huh? Maybe? I will give this movie credit. They clearly shot on location some of the time. Other times it was green screen, but some of the time they shot on location. And those scenes when he's younger, we spend a lot of time with Kraven as he's growing up, getting to know he and his father, that relationship. There were a couple shots I'm like, that's pretty good. You know, I gave Madam Web credit. It was shot well. The lighting was really solid. I wouldn't say the lighting's very good here, but hey, there were 2 shots, specifically 2 frames. And, that's about it. Look, I'm trying, folks. I don't like being negative. That's not fun. It's fun to be positive. There are many songs about that from Barney, I'm sure. But this is just an example of a movie where I had a little bit of hope, more than Madam Web. Look, Madam Web sucked. We knew it was going to suck. There was no hope there. That was that. It was over. We moved on with our lives. It was kind of funny, right? You chuckled through that movie. Kraven's also kind of funny. You could watch it and laugh. I'm sure this was a great time with the crowd. I didn't see it with the crowd. Nobody showed up. It was me and 2 other guys. And they were both sitting like 3 seats from each other in the same row. That's weird. Give the guy some space, pal. And so partially because Sony didn't have a screening within 5 hours of me, I'm not driving 5 hours for this stupid movie, I was not able to partake or engage in a communal experience where laughs were shared and joy was had. It was just me and 2 other guys sitting semi-close to each other. Just, what are we watching?
What the fuck is this?
Everything you people say on X/Twitter, all of it is valid here. Sometimes you say it about movies where it's not valid. I'm like, it's pretty fun, it's entertaining, it's not the worst thing in the world. People give blockbusters flack all the time when there are so many more worse, significantly worse movies out there, specifically on these streaming platforms that I watch, that they don't watch. And I'm like, guys, okay, if you think that's a bad movie, go watch this movie. And so I rarely say about big blockbusters what I'm about to say about Kraven. This is an atrocious big budget blockbuster movie. Atrocious. Across the board. It's semi-entertaining because of the dialogue and what these people are saying. Austin, Cut to the chase. Why is it bad? We complain about comic book movies being mediocre visually. People are still complaining about Deadpool and Wolverine. And people are saying, Kraven is still better than Deadpool and Wolverine. What are you smoking? Whatever you're smoking, I want some. And I'll give Joker 2 credit for this. It looked great. And I don't think this movie being better visually would have made it a good movie. But my God, man. Dull, gray, flat, boring, not remotely cohesive. There's a scene where he and Ariana DeBose are having a conversation in a room with some office tables, a desk, and a couple of windows, and we keep cutting back and forth between the two. I'll talk about the ADR and dialogue here in just a second, but the lighting is different in both shots. There are two distinct angles where the lighting is completely different in the same room. Not only that, but we're cutting to Ariana DeBose where she's in a pose, and then we'll cut closer to her where she's in a different pose, and then we'll cut back to Aaron Taylor Johnson, back to her where she's in a completely different pose in the span of like 10 seconds. And I'm like, who let this go through the editing room? Like, I know there were a lot of people that worked on this movie. Who said this was okay? Maybe that's why this movie sat on a shelf for so long. None of it flows. This is the most poorly edited together big blockbuster that I've seen in years. And that's just one example. There are numerous examples where we're cutting back and forth between characters and then cutting to the same character to a different angle where they're standing in a completely different position. Dude, this is a student film.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
And this is coming from a guy who likes J.C. Shandor as a director. A Most Violent Year, Triple Frontier, personally was one of the better movies I saw that year. And so I'm watching this like, all right, this is at least going to be competently directed. Oh my God. I should have known the script was going to be bad. The writer's credits include Men in Black International and Transformers The Last Night, which is a movie that famously gave me a physical reaction while I was watching it. The script here is awful. Just awful. Now, I could see how this story had a little bit of promise. You have Kraven, and you're able to show us a little bit of that backstory. Growing up as a kid, the strained relationship with he and his father, played by Russell Crowe, and that dynamic with his brother, which I think is really nice. But there's also this Kraven legend that isn't remotely explored. It's just kind of hit on by our villain, the Rhino. Man, getting past the story, how about the dialogue? What did Ariana DeBose do to you all? Seriously, what did she do to you all? And she's given a bad performance, so it's partially her fault. But I've seen her be great. I've seen her be spectacular. This is one of the worst performances by an Oscar winner I've ever seen in a movie. And it's not only the performance, it's specifically the dialogue, which could be the reason why it's so bad. It's the cheesy lines, legends don't die, Kraven, or you're not the only one with secrets. Calypso just keeps spouting out generic and dumb one-liners. Sometimes they don't even fit in the movie. Kraven's talking, she's like, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I'm like, where'd that come from? That doesn't even fit. What the fuck? And then Christopher Abbott as the Foreigner. First of all, a great example of Sony is just shoehorning as many characters as they can. There's no cohesion as to why Calypso or the Foreigner are in this movie. They just take up unnecessary chunks of time. She is the most boring character I've seen all year, and he is lost. Why is he in this movie? I like Abbott. I hope Wolfman's good because he needs redemption after this. He's terrible too. They're both terrible. They're awful. Russell Crowe, I wouldn't say he's phoning it in. He's better than everybody else in this film, other than Aaron Taylor Johnson on occasion. Those are really the only two that, Russell Crowe didn't care. There's no way he cared about this, but at least he's like, I'm getting paid. I'll do some acting here. Let me show the kids how it's done. Kraven's brother, it's not a spoiler, but I guess I'll save something for you. If you don't know who he is, well, fear not, because they give you a line literally 30 minutes into the movie, like, this guy is a real blank, and you're like, wait a second. Hang on. Did you have to tease that? Because a lot of people know, and if they don't know, then it's like, well, now we do. That's how it is for everyone. The opening line of the movie is that this guy's really craving a good time. That's not the line. But if it was, it would have fit. I throw around terms like ADR on this channel a lot. Many of us do. But if you don't know what that is, essentially, you are replacing dialogue with a voiceover over top of a character and what they're saying. Now, usually when you ADR dialogue, which happens all the time, you attempt to cover it up. okay? You're not showing the lips. You're not showing the mouth. You're not showing the front of their body. In this movie, there is no attempt to cover up the consistent use of voiceovers because clearly they weren't happy with the dialogue. There are times where the lips just don't match the words that are coming across on screen, which is atrocious. And there are other times where they're CGIing the mouth and the lips to match up with the words. That, to me, is even worse. And maybe some of you all didn't notice it. There's a scene where Kraven's sitting in a chair and the mouth is CGI'd to match the words because it's such a close-up. I'll give them credit for trying to pull one over us, but I guarantee numerous people noticed that. That is, oh my God. How about Rhino, who's played by a phenomenal actor? What is it about them getting fantastic actors to just play horrible versions of these characters? Rhino specifically, I just watched him in The Brutalist, one of the best movies of the year. And then what he's doing here, again, it's not the worst I've ever seen in terms of performance, but then you see the Rhino and you're like, Jesus Christ. I get it, he's more comic book accurate than the other version of the Rhino, but you can do better than that. We can do better than that. He looks so bad.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Again, this whole movie it's a joke. It just feels like I'm watching some ongoing gag and it never comes to an end. And, you know, in the beginning, you're getting a lot about this character, but I'm sitting here looking at my watch going, where's Aaron Taylor Johnson, man? Where's Kraven? This kid's boring. I understand getting backstory, but speed it up. Let's get there. And when we get there, it's just like a random series, an incohesive series of events that isn't entertaining. They take his brother hostage. It's so stupid. And we get this big battle sequence at the end with a bunch of terrible looking CGI animals. By the way, the CGI is atrocious. I mean, I just rewatched Wicked and I'm looking at those animals, which I don't even think look as good as the Mufasa animals, but those animals look amazing, like top tier compared to the animals in Kraven. And that's pretty important because he's a hunter, so you're going to need good CGI animals. I'm out of breath. Boo! And yeah, Morbius is bland as dirt, okay? But at least Morbius was semi-competent. God, I can't believe what am I doing?
What have they done to us?
What did they do to us?
If you watch this with a crowd, you will be entertained. You're going to laugh at the dialogue and the one-liners and the ridiculousness and the stupidity, and where his brother's singing, voicing over some music, and it just looks so terrible. Like he's moving his mouth and the words, it doesn't matter. It's not even ADR. He's just not doing a good job of lip syncing. Before I give you my score, are you craving more? Drop a like if you liked this Kraven the Hunter sends this Sony universe out on a lifeless yet slightly hilarious whimper. Aaron Taylor Johnson admittedly has some nice moments, but he is surrounded by mediocrity at almost every turn. There are great actors in here giving terrible performances, baffling editing decisions, and plenty of useless characters. What's the point anymore? What is the point? Answer that in the comments down below. Do you want to see me rank these movies? If you drop a like, if we get enough on this video, we'll rank these movies. If not, I will move on and start thinking about the best and worst of the year. I know one for worst. Take a guess in the comments. All right, see ya.